Here we find ourselves in the first week of Lent, and we're given a very particular set of readings on this Thursday in the Cycle B readings of our daily readings. The first reading comes from the book of Esther, and the book of Esther is actually one of my favorite books because it covers this lowly Jewish woman who eventually becomes the queen. And despite her being the queen, she actually turns to her faith quite frequently. She does so, and she accepts the role of being queen because she wants to save her people. She wants God to have mercy on her people, and she thinks that if she's the queen, she might be able to help them a little bit more. So what's very interesting about this reading is that we're given an image of Esther in distress. She's praying to God with not just voice, but with her whole being. She offers herself to God and lays before God prostrate, which literally means your nose to the ground. She's laying wide open to God. And she doesn't just do this by herself. She inspires her handmaids around her to do the same. So it's very interesting posture to be able to pray to God and to ask God to inspire her husband, the king, to help her people, to help the Jewish people. Which brings us to our gospel. It's a very, very, very familiar gospel from the Gospel of Matthew. Jesus says to his disciples, "Seek and you shall find. Ask and it will be given to you. Knock and the door will be opened for you." And what Jesus is saying in this particular case is that God listens to your prayers. Whether you believe it or not, God is listening to your prayers. But God isn't always going to answer your prayers how you want Him to. Like a good parent, God knows what's best for us. And so Jesus uses the image of bread. He says, if a child asks his parent for a loaf of bread, is this parent going to give his or her child a rock? No, a good parent gives what his child needs. And because God is a good parent, God is going to give us what we need, which isn't always what we want. Sometimes what we want is a disordered desire. Sometimes we don't realize what we truly need. We think we know what we need, but sometimes our wants don't equate with what our needs are. But it's very interesting in this particular case, to go back to the book of Esther, is Esther is asking again, petitioning to the Lord with her whole being. And what we do at Mass is very interesting. We don't just pray with our words. We don't just pray from our heart. We actually pray from our whole being, just like Esther. We might not be laying prostrate on the ground at every Mass, but think about what we do. Think about our actions. We sit, we stand, we kneel perhaps during the Eucharistic prayers. And one of the most common things what we've been doing in recent years is actually during the Our Father, going to the ancient form of prayer, going to the orans position, almost in surrender to God, saying, God, this is me. I'm going to pray the perfect prayer that Jesus taught me, the Our Father. And we do this in complete surrender to God, in this ancient way of praying, the orans position. And if you actually look in some of the ancient Christian artwork, you'll see some of this depicted in the artwork. Folks holding their hands up like this, praying. You might see that very popular. It's very popular in the charismatic movement. If you were to go to a place that has praise and worship, you might see that people just praying that in adoration. But people being moved to not only pray with voice or to pray with thoughts or to pray from their heart, but to pray with their whole being. And I think that's what we're inspired to do today. I think sometimes if we're in the car, one of my favorite things to give to people who struggle with road rage or being impatient in the car is I tell them to turn off the radio, to turn off distractions, and to allow themselves to just be in the silence and to pray. And it often helps them to get away from that road rage, to get away from that impatience. And one of the ways that I actually taught them, teach people how to pray, is I teach them, don't just pray with your voice. If you're at a traffic light, perhaps you want to pray with your hands up like this. God, this is a moment of patience for me. I surrender to you. Pray with your hands up like we do at Mass, to pray with your hands up like the ancient Christians did in surrender to God. And it doesn't really matter who's next to you in the car, because if there's somebody in the car next to you is thinking this person's crazy holding their hands up, well then so be it. You probably will never meet that person ever again. But you're praying to God. You're realizing that the only person that matters at this moment is God, that your relationship with God. And so my friends, pray with your whole heart. Pray with your whole mind. Pray with your voice, but pray with your whole being. Today, the Lord invites us to prayer, and let us communicate to Him with our whole selves.